Hello everyone, it is the 13th of November 2020 and I'm just about to speak to head teacher Mark Tilling. He's from the High Tunstall College of Science in Hartlepool in the northeast of England. Now you're speaking as a head teacher today, Mark, about, well, I've seen a press release and I know you're part of an organisation called Worthless, which has 7,000 head teachers belong to this across 80 local authorities. And it's a pretty damning statement, I have to say, to the government, but in particular the Department of Education, around your concerns in how they've dealt with the coronavirus, in particular this second wave. So some of the concerns, you put together a letter to your MP, a lot of you have signed that, talking about, the situation and confusion around GCSEs and A-levels and SATs, test and trace system, how schools are constantly opening and closing, year groups can be off for 2 weeks, and there's confusion, and you feel there's a lack of clarity and consistency, and poor leadership from the Department of Education. Would you agree with that? So first of all, welcome to the channel. Thank you for doing the interview. What are your concerns, and how would you seek to express them at the moment?
Thanks, Anna, and thank you for interviewing me. I think my overriding concerns is for the young people that we teach. We're at the moment going through an outbreak in our school. We've had 26 cases this week, which has been linked to a dance school in the town that was open just before lockdown. And from that, we've had sent home 400 young people to work from home. At the same time, we are teaching the same other young people in schools. So my teachers at the moment are being expected by parents and students to teach online and home and in school at the same time, which is a
That
juggling
sounds
act.
crazy. That
It
does sound
is,
very
but
difficult situation. And as a head
and
teacher, how are you managing that?
well, I would hope I'm managing it well. I'm probably needing the Friday night to come quite quickly now because it's tiring. We're exhausted. The issue for us isn't we will do our best. We've provided all lessons are online in terms of the materials, but we can't teach live online, which is what a lot of parents want. We've also got 150 young people who had no computers. Now we've given out 80 computers this week. Yes, we got our supply of computers from the government out of the laptops they provided, but now they've decided anybody else who needs them, they've cut the allocation by 80%. So I was lucky I got in before the allocations were cut, so I've got enough for my young people, and they take them, they can join online. Then we've got to give them Wi-Fi, broadband. They can dial in, they can go on to Microsoft Teams, they can work from there. But this is not going to make up for the missed learning. This is not going to make up for not being in school and getting ready for GCSEs. We've got a group of year 11 students who have missed 6 months of education. We've done all this learning online. We've done the best we can, and everybody lives in different circumstances. Some will have plenty of space, plenty of time, parents to support them, and parents at home. Some parents have been working at home, so their one PC has been taken by their parents to work at home. They haven't been able to engage. We were hand delivering 400 paper packs right through the first lockdown. Now, actually, someone's going to say we've done what we can there. We've now gone to all online. We're trying to support by giving materials. The government have given these young people 3 more weeks of study to make it for 6 months. Now, you could say everybody's in the same boat, and I accept that. Everybody is absolutely in the same boat if you live in England. But you live in Wales, you can be under a different system. And you live in Scotland, you're under a different system. Now, that's okay. People say you're competing against English people. You're not, because actually what you're competing against once you get to A-levels and university are university students from across the country. And so therefore, is a GCSE in Wales the equivalent to a GCSE in England? Now, at the moment, it is. But they're going to be assessed in different ways this year. Now, Scotland's different. They have their own system. That's always been different, and we know that. But where's the parity? Where's the support for our young people? Where's making sure our young people can be successful, can be awarded the appropriate grades they would work for? Yes, we've got 6 months. We're not saying let's not have any testing. We're not saying let's not have any exams. That's what we're saying is let's have a fair system that supports the young people for their progression. We have got to look after this generation. It's not their fault we've got a pandemic. It's not their fault they're not in school. We're trying to give them support, but we've got so much mislearning. We've got to help them, and we've got to make sure we do not hinder their future. And that is even more important for young people who live in disadvantaged communities, who don't have access, who don't have the resilience, and being home learners. It's really tough working from home. I did it for a short while. I was glad to get back in the office, and I know all those people working at home, well, some will really like it, some won't like it. So everybody's different, and people have got to understand these are children. And these children are finding it tough. There is no difference between what is home and what is work. They're not coping. The mental health issues that come with that, the support they're not getting. There is so much that's going on for this generation of young people.
I,
It's
I'm,
really, really
I,
tough.
I'm getting quite angry listening to you, I have to say, because I know that things were tough for the education system with the first lockdown. And here we are 8 months later, going into the second wave. When I've had interviews on my channel with the likes of, you know, retired epidemiologists who were speaking on behalf of Public Health Wales, Dr. Mike Yeadon, who was a chief scientific officer at Pfizer, saying that we shouldn't be going into second lockdown. Things that, you know, some people are suggesting that the PCR tests are behind all of this, and it's this fear mongering, and that the evidence seems to suggest that children are low risk, but they are suffering so much, aren't they? And when it comes to children suffering, that's something that's very, very important to me. I think it's so important that we focus on children. And I should imagine there's so much pressure for your teachers, for parents you must be speaking to, and for children. Give us a little idea of what it's like at your school and the conversations you're having with parents and with your teachers, and any case studies that you may feel comfortable to share.
I'm talking to staff about sickness, how they're feeling, their anxieties. We had a member of staff who tested positive yesterday. He was negative last week. He came back and he's tested positive. My staff are anxious. We had to deep clean the building last night, overnight, to make sure we could reopen where he had been. He's beside himself now because he's come back and he feels he's spread it. He hasn't. He was negative, and we knew he was negative, but now he's tested positive. So my staff are anxious. I've got vulnerable staff. I've got no critically extremely vulnerable staff, but I've got vulnerable staff who are really, really worrying about what's going on. Parents, we're having daily conversations with parents, about the virus and the effect of the virus and how it's spreading, but more importantly, they are absolutely beside themselves about the learning that young people are missing. And I've had conversations with parents today who are saying, we're not doing enough. You're not doing enough. You should be doing more. You should be teaching live. You should be making sure our young people get into school. I've had parents say they're coming back to school. You can't stop them. They just want that. And we're saying we can't have them. We can't do all that you want us to do. We've still got to teach those in school. Day by day, we're exhausted as ed teachers and teachers and leaders in schools. We're exhausted. I talk to my colleagues all over Hartlepool, and I talk to secondary head teachers in Hartlepool, and we're all exhausted. And it's not getting smaller; it's getting bigger. We're seeing it come into school. This is the first outbreak we've had in school. We've had 1 or 2 cases up to now, and suddenly this week we've hit with the first lockdown. We've hit with a big outbreak, and the numbers of young peoples and staff going out on us at the moment is huge. And it's okay staff being at home self-isolating if they've been track and trace, because they can work from home and they can do the work we need to do. But the minute they're sick. They need to get better, and we need to look after them, and we can't keep putting pressure on people. I think people think teachers didn't do anything for 6 months. I think they found we all sat at home and did nothing. I think I've had between March the 20th and now probably 4 or 5 days off. Yes, I had the weekends, but apart from that, 4 or 5 working days. I was in most of the summer. We were working all summer trying to get ready, getting the place COVID safe, putting signage up, writing the risk assessments, putting plans in place. I'm exhausted, and then you get the additional pressure of parents who are, and rightly so, and are absolutely under why they're worried. But it's a lack of guidance, like lack of strategic leadership. We're fine. Operationally, day to day, we're keeping going. But that pressure, that constant pressure that we're under from central government, Ofsted are going to start visits in January. We're going to have full inspections start in January. I've got 1/3 of my school presently not in school. We're not allowed visitors coming into school, but Ofsted can come in January. Why are we got inspections being relaunched in January when we're going through a pandemic? Why? I'm not saying they shouldn't be inspected. I'm not saying we shouldn't be judged. I'm not saying we shouldn't have accountability. What we should have is accountability that's measured for the time we're in and suitable for the time we're in. That's where we
There's
stand as an organisation.
absolutely, and there's so much there that I think that you're still dealing with, and like you say, I think everyone could be very stoical and loyal and stick together and get through a certain period, but when it's going on and on and on with no end in sight, just name the three solutions then, 2 or 3 solutions you think right now that the government listening to this, the Department of Education, could do to make your life easier.
I think set realistic expectations in the press of what we are expected to do in terms of teaching and learning with young people at home, and how we can support those at home and in school. I think it's very difficult to balance when you got both. In June, we were all asked, or July, we were all asked to consider a rota system. I think a rota system of half-year groups in would help, because half the teachers could be doing remote teaching, half could be teaching in school. That would be one solution. make a very clear, definitive decision about GCSE examinations and what they want us to provide evidence-wise to give evidence of young people moving forward. That would take the pressure off the students in terms of being self-isolated. They'll know when their assessments are and what we've got to do. And it means that we know where we're going. That would lead to a scrapping of the league tables for another year, because how can you compare like with like? You can't for a next year or so. And finally, I think we need to seriously look at what is the long-term strategy for education when these situations happen. We need to make sure we are supporting all our young people at all times, making sure there's no disadvantage. We're asked to narrow the gap in terms of performance, but the young people who've got disadvantaged the most are those who've had no access to any form of IT over the period of time, or have there is a disadvantaged element because parents are at home. We need to make sure that all our learners have digital access and can learn from home so that we can move that forward. I'd add a fourth one in: look after the teachers. You're going to lose many, many good teachers. You're going to lose thousands of teachers from this profession if we're not careful. They are absolutely working it. So I can only speak to my school, but they are absolutely working their socks off. I cannot question any one of them. They are working so hard. My part-time staff are now working full-time to fill the gaps for those who are sick. I can't ask more than that. And actually, if we don't look after our teachers, we will have a system in failure.
Well, a poor education system doesn't help anyone in society, does it? And
No.
I just want to say, you've got, these 7,000 head teachers. How do you all chat? Do you run a WhatsApp group? You're in a Facebook group? How do you share ideas and problems?
We get regular email updates. Jules White coordinates this from his school, and we just communicate by email as an email trail. The inbox gets full quite often, and you've got to trawl through the ones that are useful to read, because there's a lot of talk and the rest of it. Jules is the main leader in terms of putting things together, putting the press statement together, making sure we're all signed up to what was being said. We all agree to what's being sent out. We just want people to recognize the situation we're in. We just want people to work with us. We want to talk. We want the DFE to come and talk to us and see what it's like on the ground, and understand what it's like on the ground, and understand what we are doing day in, day out.
I can imagine I can imagine it's incredibly difficult to manage all these this situation with these different priorities and concerns around protecting certain people who are at risk of the virus. The problem I've got, obviously, is that I've interviewed a lot of people who believe that we should protect the vulnerable and approach this herd immunity, age-targeted herd immunity strategy, where the mask debate has been really big, hasn't it, in secondary schools? And was it necessary? People are scared and they're confused, and they're going to different places for, I'm sure you're the same. Where do you get your news? There's been huge criticism in the media.
But you've got to remember, face masks don't protect unless they're medical grade. So actually, the face masks are more of anxiety. We've had face masks on now for everybody in communal areas for about 4 weeks. We've got bubbles. We've got the kids in segments. We've got them separated out. We do. I'm not saying we're perfect, because we're certainly not. We've got things we've got right, some things we've got wrong. But actually, we've got lots of segments, lots of different ways of working. We've got all the sanitization around the school. We've got that. But the biggest thing is, when we have a case, we talk to public health, and public health will say to us, yes, you've got to break down the people within the close contacts. They go. We've not closed the whole year group. We've got 400 kids, over 5 year groups have gone. And so that's even more difficult to manage, because actually you've got 6 out of one class, 10 out of another class, 20 out of another class. And the information we're getting from public health is we're doing the right stuff. But then when you ring Public Health England, you get a different advice to what is local public health.
Have you had anyone
That's the difficulty.
Absolutely. Have you had anyone catch coronavirus and have long COVID or die? Anyone in?
No, thankfully not yet. We don't know of anybody on long COVID yet. We've had members of staff who had it in the first wave have recovered and haven't got long COVID. We have some very vulnerable students who've caught it this time, which we're really worried about. We've got some staff who I'm really worried about at the moment. I've got 2 critically extremely vulnerable at home working, so thankfully they're at home working. So we've done everything.
You're worried about them getting it. You're worried about them getting
yes.
coronavirus.
Absolutely. So we are doing everything we can as an employer. Every week I'm meeting with employees to talk about our practices, our processes. Have we got it right? Again, yesterday I sent a communication to my staff just to say, If in doubt, challenge. And that's about, if you think someone's unwell, challenge it, because we can only keep each other safe if we challenge each other to get the decision making right. Because sometimes, like my member of staff who's just come back from a negative test, he was obviously not well enough to be here. I hadn't seen him, I was elsewhere. No one challenged that until he'd been in school for a while. So now we've got the situation, we've got to isolate more people because he was in school, and if we'd stopped him coming in, it would have been better. But his test was negative. So he was in a catch-2 situation. As an employer, I'm in a catch-2 situation. And the advice is, don't come back until you feel well enough to come back. He felt well enough to come back in because he wants to be working, he wants to be supporting children. So the dedication has actually backfired on him and backfired on us.
It is a tricky situation. What do you think, how would you have responded if the government had said to you, protect your vulnerable teachers or at-risk teachers and your vulnerable pupils, and provide home learning for them until we get a vaccine or until we've built up population immunity? Do you think that would have been a better strategy, or do you think that would have had problems as well?
I don't know. I don't know what the right strategy. This is the problem, isn't it? I've got no answers. I do think that you can't keep children out of school. This is the safest place for majority of our children. We want our children here. We welcome them all back. We missed them. We missed them when we were closed. We wanted them here. I love having the children in school. I think.
Well, I've been
think the
affected by
biggest
this.
issue.
It's not good, is it? It's my son's been in and out of school back and forth, and it's an anxiety thing. He's already got a little bit of that. It's not helpful for a lot of children to be going to school, to coming back to school. They've already, like you said, missed 6 months, and it's the best place and the safest place is for children to be in school. And you all sound incredibly dedicated and passionate about education, and frustrated by the situation that you find yourselves in. And I really do hope you guys get through it, and I hope we can help in some way. So what would you like to finally say? Get everything out that you need to get out. What's your message?
Think about the children. Think about the effect this is having on the children, and think about the long-term effect in terms of academic qualifications now. The most important thing is these young people aren't failed by us again as a system, because we have to make them do GCSE exams at a time when they've missed so much. I'm not saying don't examine. I'm not saying don't test. What I'm saying is let's rethink what we're doing. Think about your education system and the teachers who are working so hard, who are trying their very best. And think of the leaders in school. I'm one of those leaders. I am exhausted. And if you're not careful, you're going to have a lot of leaders leave this profession because they've had enough. Think about the support we've got to give to the disadvantaged. Let's not widen the gap. Let's narrow the gap. Let's give them that system. We're in a rich country. Why have we not got universal broadband in every house? Why have we not enabled people the access to what they need to do? And finally, think about that pressure you're putting on schools around inspection, league tables. Are they necessary at this moment in time? I'm not saying they're not necessary, full stop. I'm saying, are they necessary now? Are inspections the necessary thing now? Yes, go and check. Go and check. We're doing everything we need to do. Come and see us. More than welcome. But make sure you understand the context.
Mark Tilling, head teacher up in the northeast of England. Thank you so much for speaking to me. I really appreciate it. You take care.
Thanks, Anna. Bye-bye.
Bye.